Hello and welcome back to CCTU. I'm Bill Van Amber.
And I'm Alicia Gildy. Another new month is upon us, and that means another CCTU episode. Our goals are to transition to 100% zero-emission light-duty vehicles and zero-emission truck and bus sales by 2035. We look forward to seeing you on April 26th at 11 a.m. Pacific for our next live broadcast.
And we will CCTU soon. And we are back. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be back and to CCTU for our latest edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. As always, I'm Bill Van Amber, and I'm really happy to be back in our new LA studios. Very cool here. And as always, with my great partner and colleague, Alicia Gildy. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi, Bill. It's great to be back here with you for our CCTU Tuesday for our 30-minute broadcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We are here to bring you the latest news coming out of CALSTART and the clean transportation industry.
Yeah, that is really so true. And this month on CCTU, we're really focusing right on the heels of Earth Day on the new data that is pressing the urgency for massive and immediate reductions to limit global warming to just 1.5 degrees C.
Alarming results indeed. We'll highlight the recently released report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which highlighted immediate actions to be taken to make the biggest impacts on climate change, including advancing zero-emission transportation and renewable energy.
And you know, what's important, it also stresses that we can, in fact, we must make those changes now. And we're fortunate to have with us today, Austin Brown, Senior Director for Transportation Emissions for the White House Office on Climate Policy. He'll be joining us later to talk about the IPCC report and how the White House is responding to this urgent call for action.
Bill, it's great to have Austin with us. And as we've been reporting over the last couple of months, the federal government is stepping up in a big way with the implementation of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, with billions of dollars committed to advancing infrastructure for zero emission and alternative fuel vehicles. Here in California, CalSTART is leading large statewide incentive projects to speed up the pace of ZEV adoption.
Boy, on infrastructure and on vehicles. And joining us to give a quick update on the vehicle side on the recent reopening of the California Air Resources Board Hybrid and Zero Emission Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, that's a really mouthful, we call it HVIP, is Tarah Campi, who is the Deputy Director here at CalSTART for HVIP. Tarah will give us an update on the huge demand, hundreds of millions of dollars for HVIP funds since the project reopened to get the next, actually it's more than 2,000 vehicles on the road, which is great. She'll also share how the growing demand is supporting increased domestic manufacturing, an important goal for building our green economy.
Well, Bill, we have so much to discuss, and it's time to get to our poll. All right, so we've been talking about the IPCC report. We would love to hear how you're feeling about it, everyone. All right, does it make you want to redouble our efforts and drive faster action? How about that we're concerned that we are falling farther behind?
It's a big deal.
Number 3, angry that some sectors are resisting climate action. And how about number 4, proud I am a business contributing to reductions. Well,
where are you on that this morning?
I'm on number 1 and number 3.
I totally hear the anger piece. It's also so important that people are making a difference.
Yes.
And we're certainly, this industry we work with is trying its best. So where are people? What are we seeing on the poll?
All right, number 1.
Number 1.
Okay, followed by number 4. All right.
Part of an industry making a difference, but we need to move faster and concerned about it.
All right. It may change as we go throughout the program today. So we might check in with you, Jay.
I think that's a good point. Well, let's start with the news program part of our segment and really dive into it. This is big, sobering, and the reality really hammered home at us this month. Takeaway number 1 for us, the climate crisis is now at a critical stage. The latest report that we talked about from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, provides their newest findings on mitigation and action, and it finds we are way behind the pace needed to stabilize world temperatures at safe levels. In fact, it says we still can keep temperatures safe, but we must act to do that just in the next couple of years to be able to achieve it. And the report says the biggest area where we must act is eliminating the burning of fossil fuels. And how seriously are world scientists taking this latest report? Well, I'll tell you, they've taken to protests around the world to get people to pay attention to how critical our position is. Over 1,000 scientists in 25 countries staged a scientist rebellion, stating that our current climate actions are grossly inadequate and their warnings can no longer be ignored.
Climate impacts seen around the world emphasize the report's findings. In Antarctica, an ice shelf the size of Rome has broken off the frozen continent. It's a further sign of the continued melting from increased global temperatures and ocean heating. And the impacts of climate change are being felt right here in our backyard in California. Amid a continuing drought in the West, an ancient lake on a major bird migratory flyway will cease to exist this summer. Tule Lake in Northern California will likely dry up by July or August, as will the lower Klamath Lake. These waters have been an important resource to farmers and wildlife, but now there's little left.
This is really painful. I know that Modoc County area well, and this is incredibly sad. So our first takeaway, we cannot afford to wait any longer on serious climate actions. But our second takeaway shows we can act, right, Alicia?
That's right. Our second takeaway, we have the tools to go faster. Another key finding of the IPCC report is that we do not have to wait to act. We have the technology solutions to reduce our impacts today, such as electric vehicles and powering them with renewable energy. We also have the tools such as strong policies and investments to speed up the pace. Where we've been falling short is the lack of will. We need more strong, decisive action, but saying there is nothing we can do is not an excuse. And as an example, California is putting forward a new plan to eliminate the use of fossil fuels. The state is looking to ban the sale of combustion cars by 2035, and along with several global nations, have committed to all new vehicle sales being zero emission by that time. This new plan turns that commitment into action in hopes of going even farther and faster on the quest to drastically reduce emissions.
That is really raising the bar with that tough requirement. And the state is serving as a model in more than just requirements, though, also in investments and incentives. We've been talking about that. A new report just released, California highlighted the $10.5 billion it has already implemented in climate reductions through its climate investments projects. Just in 2021 alone, more than 75,000 projects were launched by the state. An additional $8 billion is now in the pipeline for even more of those projects.
So let's emphasize again that second takeaway. We have the tools and we can meet the climate crisis if we act and act now. Bill, what is our third takeaway?
Well, this is important. If you act, you drive results. Now, that shouldn't be a big secret, but this is the big takeaway we have. Zero emission capability is improving in real time from those investments. Now, we told you last month about the Proterra batteries that powered a Van Hool electric bus in a drive from Florida to California. Now, Proterra has unveiled a bigger version of its battery packs in its ZX5 transit bus. I love that name. The largest of any bus in North America. It gives the bus more than 300 miles of range, covering nearly all the routes in the US transit system. Now, Proterra has focused on its battery innovations, and those packs are designed and built right in the US. Also, some big news from VW that impacts commercial vehicles too. VW is planning new capabilities for its electric vehicles to allow longer ranges and faster charging that comes from lighter and more powerful batteries coupled with a more efficient powertrain design. Now, given that VW is the parent of the Traton Truck Group, which owns Navistar in the US, by the way, these capabilities will make the shift to commercial vehicles too.
That's exactly what is happening at GM. The company and its partners have developed a more advanced battery and powertrain technology. They call it the Ultium. That's what GM is using for its Bright Drop commercial platform, as well as the Hummer EV and its newest electric cars. GM is also building a plant in the US to make that battery from the cell level up.
Those are powerful statements, and with investments, improvements are accelerating in real time. Alicia, let's share our top takeaways for April.
You got it. So first, the data is in. The climate crisis is now critical. We are not moving fast enough, and we must take action now.
Second takeaway, we do have the tools to go faster and get that action going. Renewables and zero emissions are ready to cut and eliminate fossil fuel combustion.
And our final takeaway, zero emission capability is improving in real time, especially batteries. Invest and it will improve fast. Bill, should we take that poll over again and see what people think?
Let's see if people come up with some different answers. I think that's a really good idea. We need to act and we can. And that's actually why we're so happy to have our guest for our decision maker segment now. We're delighted to be joined by Austin Brown. Austin's the Senior Director for Transportation Emissions at the White House Office of Domestic Climate Policy. First of all, Austin, thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to get into this discussion with you.
Thank you so much. Really pleased to be here. Great to see all the progress that's been made. I love seeing it all highlighted in one place. It feels like a whole lot.
There is a lot of reality out there, and I think we're all frustrated. It doesn't always get seen. One place we'd really like to start with you, if we can. The IPCC report makes it really clear that immediate action on climate is critical. It calls out vehicle electrification as one of the big, immediate, and critical actions. From your perspective, what more does the U.S. need to do to ensure the nation is competitive, even starts to lead on zero emission vehicles like cars and heavy duty?
Absolutely. The first IPCC report I read was the 2001 third assessment report. Feels a little bit like ancient history. That scared me back then. And every single report since then has increased my personal feelings of need to act and my commitment to doing my part to help us get emissions under control and eventually turn them zero and negative. The findings of this most recent report are absolutely clear and compelling. We have the tools available and we need to take urgent action. And that upped the urgency for all of us. But I really also empathize with a lot of the respondents to your poll earlier. I'm also really proud of the actions we're taking and want to make sure that we're really looking at that strategy and just recommitting to advancing it. So the strategy for transportation and for vehicles that President Biden laid out involves leadership throughout the supply chain. Number one, we need to invest in the infrastructure. The president set a goal for 500,000 chargers and to create a seamless network for light duty and eventually heavy duty vehicles as well. Make sure that people can get wherever they want to go and know that they'll have a charge available to them both at their origin, their destination, and everywhere along the way. Number two, we need to boost our manufacturing capacity. That's not just for the vehicles themselves. It's a new focus on batteries, motors, and critical components of electric vehicles, and make sure that these jobs are here in the US, both creating a robust supply chain and creating a robust economy and great working jobs for people building these vehicles and components. Number three, create the incentives for companies and consumers. This is still an early technology, and in many cases, it costs more upfront. So we need to create the right policy environment so that companies and individuals can afford to be early actors and leaders and adopt these vehicles, which then, as you own and use them, save money on fuel and on maintenance. Number four is doubling down on innovation and continue our commitment to research and development. The federal agencies have a long history of innovation that's helped create the technologies that are on the road today, but that's no time to stop now. We have to keep getting that investment out into the hands of creative partnerships and research labs to build the next version of the battery that's going to either have lower critical minerals, higher performance, higher density, lower cost. It's a continuous pipeline that we need to improve. And then lastly, leading by example with the federal fleet. We have a fleet of around 600,000 vehicles in the federal fleet, many of which are medium and heavy duty vehicles. And we're committed to being the first customer out there ready to adopt these vehicles into uses where they meet the agency mission. And we have a commitment for all new light duty vehicles to be 100% zero emission by 2027 and for all federal agency vehicles by 2035. So on some of these, we've made some exciting down payments. But on others, we know we have a huge amount more to do. And so I'm happy to talk about some of those big to-do list items that we think need to be done next.
Yeah.
Austin, that's awesome. So let me just quickly sum up. You mentioned infrastructure, manufacturing, incentives, driving innovation, and then the federal fleet leading by example. Awesome examples of what the administration is doing to help us move forward and act fast. So thank you so much for that. All right, the administration has stressed that combating climate change is good for people and the planet, that it can grow jobs and the economy. IIJA funds are starting to flow, but Build Back Better remains stalled. Are we moving fast enough to establish this new industrial base? And you just provided some great examples.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as fast enough, given what we've seen. Right. But we are doing everything we can to advance that. So there's two areas that I think were really key for this group in the Build Back Better proposal and in the House version of the Build Back Better Act. that we're continuing to work very hard on. Number one, we proposed an incentive for zero emission heavy duty vehicles. This would be a first of kind tax credit, and the House version had a tax credit in there that would have significantly changed the economics and made medium and heavy duty vehicles more economic for adopters. That's an absolutely critical piece of what we're doing. And then number two would have been extending and improving the 30C alternative fuel tax credit. This would provide, make it much more affordable to install chargers, both at facilities like for fleet depots and for many public charging applications. But we don't just sit and wait and hope that we can get this done, even as we're working very hard on it. We believe in using every single tool available, and we're not waiting around for more support. So we're closely engaged with agencies and industry and external experts on what a pathway to zero looks like under a variety of different circumstances. For example, have asked the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Transportation to consider new standards for both light and heavy duty vehicles going forward that would reflect the reality of where we are, both in terms of the challenge and the need, but also in terms of the opportunity with the lowest cost we've ever seen for advanced zero emission technology, making it more economic than ever before to reduce emissions.
You know, that's really powerful. And I know those incentives, particularly for commercial vehicles, are something that we have been strongly supporting and love to see that move. But I love the multi-strategy approach, Austin. I think that's powerful. One of the things that, if we want to drill down one more level, one of the big strategic areas for these kinds of vehicles is certainly in energy storage and batteries. CALSTART and its members have formed the U.S. EV Battery Leadership Initiative to really drive towards manufacturing. How critical do you see is it to bring battery manufacturing into the U.S.?
It's totally essential. We need to do this both for strategic reasons and make sure that we have access to this incredibly critical resource at any time, and in a way that's resilient to geopolitical developments. And it's also an economic imperative. We are committed to going to zero emission in a way that grows good new jobs here in the United States. And a huge portion of that value chain is going to be in the battery. It's going to be by far the biggest, the most expensive piece of a vehicle. And when you dig down into it, there are needs along the whole supply chain. So one of the first things that President Biden did is he charged the administration to develop a supply chain strategy for many critical needs, including batteries. That includes looking at raw materials, material processing, and getting it to the form that is available to go into components, producing those components and anodes and cathodes for batteries, then finally building battery cells, modules, and packs. So it's this really long, complex ecosystem, some of which we already have good presence in the United States, but many components were way, way, way behind. And we've especially focused on that material processing and components all the way up to the cells as a piece in the middle of that value chain where we need enormous new investment in the United States. The good news is we are doing a lot on this as well. We've learned a lot. We believe we're ready to act in many ways. We're obviously recently invoked the Defense Production Act that will help support American production of these critical materials such as lithium. And we secured $7 billion in the bipartisan infrastructure law for battery material processing and then battery components and manufacturing. This is going to be an enormous game-changing investment. We see that other markets in Europe and China have been making these sorts of strategic investments. And we believe that we need to make those investments not just to keep pace, but then couple that with the unique innovation and research and rich development environment in the United States to help really take a leadership role again on battery manufacturing.
Austin, thank you so much. It's great to know that how the government is moving forward in a sustainable way as we're looking at building out that supply chain so that we're able to move that technology and innovation forward. Well, my next question to you, all the data shows that we as a nation and the world are not moving fast enough to avoid the worst outcomes. How do we tell the story of necessary and positive change and its urgency better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one way to help us remember to go faster is to actually look at the positives and look at the opportunities. So if you do look back at some of these old IPCC reports, and believe it or not, I occasionally do peruse some of these old reports, they had scenarios where we just had continuous growth in emissions, exponential growth in emissions, like the path we'd been on since the Industrial Revolution. And those were driving straight into catastrophe. Now, the good news is we've bent the curve on global emissions, and those emission scenarios are now largely off the table. That's not a coincidence. That's because of better technology and concerted policy action at the national and subnational levels. Obviously, we have a huge amount more. We know you need to bend that curve downwards as quickly as possible, but we've showed that you can move the needle while still having a growing and thriving economy. You just need to get the technology and policy right. And the one thing related to that our boss always remembers to say to us is, when we're dealing with climate change, we shouldn't look at this as just a penance to be taken. This is an opportunity. This is the greatest economic opportunity of our generation. We can create better technology that also creates the kind of new high-paying jobs that people want, both in the US and worldwide. We just have to get moving together as a community, both industry and policymakers, and get that situation right to align for those positive outcomes.
Well, great. And, that really sums up the point well, because this is an area of strategic leadership I think the world looks to the U.S. to do. And I think the people of the U.S. really need to hear that story so that we can be pushing forward faster. These are better jobs. It's a better world if we do it. Austin, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insights today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, next, let's talk a little bit more now about some of the things we can do on the ground that are real. We're going to be joined by Tarah Campi, who is our HVIP Deputy Director at CALSTART. Tarah, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for this segment. It's so good to have you here.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, so first off, let's just start with the big story. There are hundreds of millions of dollars available in California when HVIP reopened earlier this month. What did you see? What was the demand like?
Yeah, so it was really exciting. HVIP's reopening on March 30th with a historic investment of over $400 million that was made available across standard HVIP and a variety of vocational set-asides. And we saw $250 million of demand in the first 24 hours. So we're in a really good position where there's very strong market signals, but still funding remaining. So we encourage people to visit the HVIP website, californiahvip.org, and see our funding page, which shows granular detail about the available funds that are still available, and work with your dealers to continue to get requests in. So this is really a good and unprecedented for us in the last couple of years position to be in, where there is still funding remaining, and it's kind of hard to believe for our dealers that are returning and our stakeholders that there's still money on the table.
Oh, that's great. Well, Tarah, it's so great to see you. I'm so proud of you and the HVIP team. Congratulations with all this great work. Well, we would like some more details. What vehicle segments showed the highest numbers, and why is that, you think?
Absolutely. So three categories account for 81% of the voucher requests that have come in to date since March 30th. Tractors, Class A tractors, we've seen over 1,000, building on the heels of CARB's Project 800 last year and exciting momentum at the ports. And panel, step, and cargo vans, over 600. So some exciting momentum in that emerging market segment. School buses, also very exciting, very dynamic. There's a set aside for small and medium air districts for buses that are for 2007 or older. And the team has been reaching out directly to school districts that fall within those categories, and over 500 vehicles have been requested so far for those buses.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that gives us kind of a sense of the lay of the land. What have we learned about the size and types of fleets who purchased, and where are they deploying their vehicles? Because that's really been a focus for the team, I know.
Yeah, so private requests are outpacing public right now, and we're still crunching the numbers on fleet size, but nearly 30% are going to fleet size 50 and smaller. Nearly 40% are going to fleet size 100 and smaller. Really strong demand in Southern California around the ports and et cetera. So majority of requests are in Southern California, but a good geographic spread throughout the state, including in the San Joaquin Valley. And really exciting, nearly 60% of voucher requests are going to disadvantaged communities. Sorry, I will also note that we still do have one set aside of funding that has not yet opened, which is dedicated to small fleets.
Good. Well, hey, Tarah, that sounds wonderful. I'd love to hear how we're benefiting a number of fleets in disadvantaged communities, looking at the number and percentage of small fleets that we're supporting. That is wonderful. So now tell me a little bit about the assistance we're offering to users to help get trucks and their infrastructure in place.
Absolutely. So as the market rapidly accelerates, it's been really critical to have tools at the industry's disposal that we can help put projects on the ground throughout the state. And there are a variety of tools that you can find on the HVIP website, as well as other CALSTART affiliated websites, including a total cost of ownership estimator that lets you compare the cost of your new vehicle with conventionally fueled counterparts, as well as an exciting new infrastructure insight tool that lets you dig into infrastructure planning, a funding finder tool that looks at other funding opportunities throughout the state, and a lot of technical assistance opportunities with our truck team and our bus team to work with fleets, public and private, throughout the state on project delivery.
Tara, that's great. Well, yes, everyone visit the HVIP and the Energized Commercial Vehicle Project websites, because there's a lot of great information and technical assistance that can be found. Well, Tara, thank you so much for sharing your insights. The demand for zero-emission commercial vehicles is really growing. It's been wonderful having you on with us today. Really appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
Hey, what Tara's pointed out, what we heard from Austin, clearly we need to focus and work together to achieve our emission reduction goals. And that makes both of us more excited than ever, because we're going to take CCTU on the road, and we're heading off to the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo with the whole team.
Yes, the ACT Expo has become the industry showcase to highlight real vehicles and technologies, both in development and currently in use, to meet the goals of clean transportation.
So because of that, we're taking the entire CCTU team, ourselves included, to Long Beach. We'll be on the expo floor, at the ride and drive, and interviewing industry leaders right from on site.
We'll share with you the top announcements and breakthroughs. Several new vehicles will be unveiled, new infrastructure technology announced, and new technologies shown. And our CCTU crew will be there.
So if you're going, look for us. Drop in and say hi. We'll be down on the floor for a big part of the time. And we will pull together a complete review for you at the next CCTU at ACT.
And we'll see you there.
For now, though, thank you for joining us for these important updates surrounding the state of our climate crisis and the tools we can utilize to sprint forward and make big changes in our path to zero emissions.
While the state of our climate is serious, we do have what it takes to make a change. If we strive to make that change now with the technology and policies already within our reach, but that is our broadcast for now for this month.
So thank you for joining us on CCTU Tuesday. As always, I'm Bill Van Amberg.
And I'm Alicia Gildy. And as we close out today, we do want to take a moment to thank our wonderful creative team for making CCTU possible. Many thanks to our executive producers, Jennifer Manfrey and Whitley Porter, associate producer, Heather Helstein, producing coordinator, Carly Magnan, graphic designer, Amir Sharik, and our wonderful team here, Sam Troughton and David Park on our production team.
And that's what makes all of this come together to be able to tell you this story. And join us for the next episode of CCTU, where we'll, as we mentioned, share some exclusive interviews and wrap up the big industry announcements from the ACT Expo.
That's May 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Until then, be sure to stay connected by following us at CALSTART on Twitter and register for our live broadcast on our website.
And we will CCTU soon.